Television news in India has been in the news in recent times for all the right reasons and all the wrong reasons. While it has done a yeoman's service in keeping the public informed during the initial days of the lockdown, during the COVID period, and then during the opening up, in recent times, and also it was caught on the wrong foot during COVID times for somewhat of unbalanced reporting. And more recently, it has come in the news because of advocacy journalism or tabloid journalism. Some people have started to call the genre as views TV rather than news TV. Journalists are playing investigator, judge, and executioner. This has been questioned by all quarters, while a section has also applauded that kind of journalism that's beginning to spread across different networks. And even more recently, the genre has seen a blackout of viewership ratings following acquisitions of TRP manipulations by certain channels. And following that, channels have been finger pointing at each other, laying the blame on each other for the misdemeanors. The news industry appears to be fissioned into two groups, one with the backing of mainline TV news channels, and the other with smaller news channels as its members. The slugfest has resulted in the news channel genre once again coming into the limelight as the charges and counter-charges have been played out during primetime news. Many have called this one of the darkest phases in the history of India's television news genre. Of course, the darkest phase was during the emergency in the 70s, when newspapers were gagged, journalists caged under an authoritarian government. What is the way forward for the industry? Is primetime news about debates, shouting matches? Apart from debates and shouting matches, can primetime news go deeper into covering what's really happening in India? Should this pause period be a time when we re-examine what primetime news is all about? Do we need to have a lot more analysis of developments by specialists and experts? For some channels, primetime is responsible for as much as 50% of their overall revenues. Is this high dependency of a single primetime slot good for the news business, for revenues? Is it good for the entire news business? Do we need to redefine news? Should there be a more stringent self-regulatory content code be put in place by the news industry itself before outside forces come in and start dictating what news should be? Anyway, questions have already been asked whether the news media in India is being dictated to today rather than being the fourth estate, the fourth pillar, which actually questions everything that's happening. Can the Broadcast Editors Association play a larger role? Should journalists be given more teeth? Who is the fourth estate serving? Viewers, citizens, or is it certain forces? To answer these questions and many more, possibly which they may hurl up and may hurl at me too for being so very bold and blatant in what I've just said, we have a fabulous panel of speakers. And these are journalists in their own right, in their very own rights. There's Kishore Ajwani, the managing editor of News 18 India. Welcome, Kishore. I have Rahul Kanwar, the news director of India Today and Aaj Tak. Welcome, Rahul. Yeah. Palki Sharma Upadhyay, the executive editor of WION. Welcome. And then there's Rahul Shivshankar, the editor-in-chief of Times Now. Yeah, welcome. So I've thrown open I put forth a lot of questions. I'd like, Rahul, you're appearing first in my screen. I'd like you to begin by reacting to what I've just said.
There are two Rahuls.
Rahul Shivshankar.
Well, look, there are three or four issues. I think we're confusing three or four issues here. One, of course, is the format on news TV at prime time, which is separate from some of the other issues you've raised about, manipulation and the cross-holding culture in news TV. I think the emphasis for too long has been on editors. I think that a lot of control is wrested away from editors on what they can actually play. I'm not saying that management tells you what to play, but I think that there are extraneous pressures. For example, there is a manic machine in television called the TRP, right? I'm not trying to pass the buck, but you have to live with the reality of what we have today, which is an unviable business model. And till you're wagged by the TRP tail, the news dog is going to have to follow. And that's the problem. TRPs are intrinsically linked to advertising. Advertising, of course, is linked to how much you're watched, so it's a vicious cycle. Now, if you can address that, if you can insulate the news business from manic TRP pressure and fluctuations on a weekly basis, editors in edit meetings will be able to say, hang on, I don't really have to play, and this is no prejudice to anyone, the Sushant Singh Rajput story for 6 weeks because I really don't believe in it, or I don't believe it's the lead headline of the day. And you can then start looking at other news which might be impacting more than one family or a whole group of individuals, impacting the country. So that's the second level that you've got to look at this. Thirdly, I think the entire system from BARC to NBSA, it's all too convoluted. There's not much transparency. It all needs to be pulled down. It all needs to be brought down. I think we really need to start looking at where we are coming from. I'll tell you, a lot of what is happening today is happening because I feel that certain media houses came out of the blue and started stepping on the toes of other media houses, and that sort of got everyone split into camps. This is my personal view. But I'm here to actually speak really the honest truth. And I don't believe that we can be cagey about what we say. I think we have to be dead honest. I'm very tired of people constantly pointing fingers at editors, suggesting that editors don't have moral integrity, that they don't have rectitude. If I can sit opposite proprietors or those who have expectations and tell them that, look, this is the news I want to do, but it conflicts with your outlook on revenue, then if I had the authority and the power and could pull that punch beyond a point, of course one does, but beyond a point, then I think you can hold us to account. But I think here, just asking questions of editors and not the business heads would be wrong. It would be to single out business heads. Secondly, and I'm going to finish in the next 60 seconds. Secondly, I think that this crisis that is being made out to be about various news channels attacking others, etc., this has happened even in print, okay? And it continues to happen. And it's just a little more sophisticated because of the nature of the medium. You can't really go onto national TV and start, firing your bazooka at the TV channel next door. So it's done in different ways. I know that various newspapers have people who look at news media and call themselves analysts, and they comment about other people's work, etc., blindly ignoring some of the stuff that goes on within their own organization. So there's a great deal of hypocrisy, and now you have a digital universe where you have self-styled non-journalists who are commenting on other people's journalism, and they're doing it because they want to bring down traditional media so that the revenue pie can shift to them. So it's very transparent. It's actually sophomoric, and I think people need to grow up.
Absolutely. So Rahul, it's over to you now, the other Rahul Kanwal.
I think it's very convenient not to take responsibility for what you do. I think that's wrong. I mean, ultimately, as a broadcaster, as a journalist, as a human being, you have to believe in what you do, and to just turn around and say it's not in my control. And I don't say this in reference to anyone, but every story that you run, every show that you do, meetings that you do, you should do what you believe is right. And if you think that what you're being asked to do or what you're having to do is not what you want to do, then you should not do that job. It's as simple as that. I mean, to say that there are pressures of ratings, I mean, there's always pressure of ratings and there's always pressure to win, but there's no pressure to sell your soul. And there's no pressure to be in bed with the devil. And
Rahul, I'm going to interrupt you here. You've been on the top of the charts forever. So you haven't faced that pressure.
No, but can I present it differently? I say that what is most important? I mean, if making money is more important, then there are different ways and you can make money, and with much less stress than the stress that all of us deal with. And if there is no conviction in what you're saying, and if you don't believe in the stories that you're saying, or let's assume that you believe you're doing story X and that's not a story, and yet you have to do it, I think that's gross dereliction of responsibility, and you shouldn't do it. I mean, if you don't think that's a story, then why are you doing the story? You shouldn't do the story, do something else. And I think that change must come from within. People must do what their conviction tells them to. So just to sit back and say, I'm not powerful, I can't do anything, and it's beyond my control, that to my mind is too convenient, and it's, you just can accept it, there's nothing you can do, whatever.
So you believe in the NCB investigation of the Bollywood drug, of them being involved in drugs? Because I don't know, there were so many other things happening in India at the time. We just chased that one story, the SSR story, then Riya Chakravarti, she made it to the headlines, then everything that happened. So you believed as a group that that is something which is more important than what's happening in different places in India with citizens. Because everyone came out as a herd and it was a herd mentality.
No, sure. So first and foremost, it's not the only story we did. We did lots of other stories as well. At that time, the economy crashed about 23.9%. We did that story. Our COVID coverage still continued. So it's not as if we did that story alone. And yes, it's a story. And to the extent that it's a story, we told the story. We didn't make up facts. We didn't make things out to be in a way that we knew wasn't true. And we didn't lie and distort deliberately. And we were true to our conscience, to the best manner possible, and that's what we did. And it's not the only story we did. To the extent that people across the country were talking about that story, and you got for the first time the Narcotics Control Bureau calling these big Bollywood stars in for questioning. It is a story. Of course, you have to do the story.
Yeah, but I was watching one of your journalists saying that there's no there's no plane available for her to be brought back tonight. I mean, is that the coverage that should be done on national television? That Deepika is not being able to book a flight. I mean, is that what's I watched one of the.
Sure. So I am not even disputing that this could have happened. It's possible that you watched it on our channel. You could have watched it elsewhere too. And that's also not something that I'm terribly happy about. But I'm saying that even then, that's not the only story we were doing. We did multiple other stories. And the fact is that you stay open to where you think things went wrong and you try and correct. And you correct from within. You don't sit back and say, I'm virtually like a puppet. I'm actually an editor, but not really. There are too many conflicting factors around me which I can't deal with, and therefore, and there's nothing I can do. I don't think that. So if there is a mistake, you acknowledge that there's a mistake. You try and see what's the best that can be done to fix it, and you don't repeat that mistake. And you do the content that you believe in. If you don't do the content you believe in, having to say and do things which you don't believe in, don't do the job. I mean, there's so many other ways in which.
Actually, Rahul, I think you're being a little reactive. I think you've got to look at it in the larger perspective. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean for you to think that people don't think that they don't take responsibility for what they do. Obviously, everyone does. I wouldn't have done, let's say, the Sushant Singh Rajput story with the conviction that you guys also did if we didn't think it was a story. So let's not reduce this to a very simplistic sort of binary. I was talking about the news industry as a whole, where right. We are one part of one cog in a very large wheel. That's what I was trying to say. So I know where this is going to go. So let's not do that. I think we really need to recognize that there are a lot of other factors that collide in newsrooms when decisions are made, and one shouldn't sort of look away from that. I think let's be honest about these things. That's all.
Yeah. So also one more thing about Kishore, your perspective. Palki, I'll leave you for the last, the best for the last. No, with no malice towards the other males on the panel, please. No offense meant to them. Kishore, your perspective on what has been spoken so far.
I think it's somewhere in between what the two Rahuls have said. I'm saying it's a screen, and when we say prime time, it's a screen when people have done what they've done in the day, they know what's happened. We're all informed, and most of the viewers are informed by many means during the day. So it's not that when you sit down at the end of the day, some people and many people would like to have views of half a dozen people about certain things. And that's how it goes. Chai ki dukaan pe bhi to jate hain na log sunne ke liye. You don't go and tell them ki boss ye chai ki dukaan pe ye baat kyun kar rahe ho? Ye wali karo. It's a screen. You got a remote. You don't agree. I mean, I was not into that story personally in my show, but okay, there are shows. And if you don't agree with that show, switch on to another screen. And who's holding a gun to your head to watch only news channels? I'm sorry, but whatever we do, Rahul, Palki, and all of us, we do with what we believe we should be doing. And there are views which are, Anil, you don't agree on certain things. There are other people who would not agree on things that you might agree on.
Absolutely.
But that's there in all cases. Why should we continue to believe that news television ka ye format hai, ye aise hi hona chahiye? It should be a headlines and the top story of the day. That should be political. Wo ye, phir uske baad ye, but then we go on to a tail piece. No, we take a story in certain shows and we get some talking heads and we talk about it. People do watch. Yes, they do. And there's agar aisa nahi hota, itni sari political parties, I'm talking of political stories, so many political parties, the lower rung leadership, they want to be on these shows to take a step up in their careers. So there must be some viewership to it, no? There must be.
Kishore साहब सुनिए मेरी बात. हम लोग conscience keeper होना, हमारा, what is our role as media? Are we a medium to communicate? Are we a medium to help people as a stepping stone? Are we a conscience keeper of those in power, of those who can, of the common people who are what we are trying? What are we? Who are we as the news television business?
No, even a newspaper has got 16 to 20 pages. Na middle pages bhi hote hain. You are talking only of the middle pages. कि इसमें इसका opinion, ये editorial क्यों है? I'm thinking back pages bhi to hai. So what are we? A newspaper may be defined by certain opinion columns that you have in the paper, or similar with TV, and all these primetime shows that you're talking about. More and more, they're now identified with the anchors.
Absolutely.
Right? So what are we is now for that anchor and for that show. Okay, there are media vehicles which are just one-man vehicles. We're not talking of those, right? We're talking of primetime shows. There's Rahul's show, and Rahul's show Rahul Kanwal's show. It's Rahul Kanwal and his opinion and how he conducts it and how he engages viewers. Same with Rahul Shivshankar. So I don't know. It started off with हम लोग कुछ गलत कर रहे हैं, you know.
I'm just throwing up some thoughts. Is it time for us to re-examine the way we do primetime news? That's all I'm saying. Palki.
Yeah, I think all of us re-examine it every day, every evening.
In terms of stories, or in terms of format, or in terms of the conversations, or in terms of the guests, in terms of...
I think in all aspects.
Okay.
There's a
TRP monster. We've got to get the ratings. We've got to track it. If the news is going in that particular following that story, we've got to follow it. Or do we, there was a time, if I go back in time, there was Blitz, which was tabloid journalism. Rusi Karanjia used to edit that publication. And he had publications. Okay. And when you had a Blitz followed a particular school, Indian Express followed a particular, during the emergency, took a certain tack of going against those in power. So what I'm getting at is that, but there were thousands of other newspapers who gave you news.
Yeah,
and people news.
But we are talking of television here, right? So it's a different medium. Rusi Karanjia, you might be knowing, जब integrate करना था, the princes had a conference at Taj in Mumbai. Rusi Karanjia went dressed as a prince, and covered that what the princes were talking about. That would have been great television in these times, right? कोई reporter hidden camera लेके अंदर ही घुस गया कि princes क्या बात कर रहे हैं कि इंडिया में कैसे integrate होना है. That was considered tabloid journalism at that time.
Okay, great. So let's get Palki's view now on this.
I have so much to say, and I've not even covered the story you guys have talked about. But I have covered similar stories in the past. Now I have the luxury to actually decide what I want to do, and I do that. We talk about TRP. We know that is the currency in today's business, but we know that the system is flawed, and the sample sizes are very small. All of us know this, and yet some of us are dictated by what happens. I think the flaw of the system cannot be blamed on the editors alone. I agree to that extent with Rahul Shivshankar. It is the viewers, because this is a country that watches those shows. There are those numbers to prove, and yet as editors, one cannot abdicate the responsibility that comes with the position, and say that I have this mandate, but I also have to take care of the business as well. I have to bring the numbers, I have to bring the revenue. There are various ways to bring the revenue and make an impact. And you do not only have to follow the TRP model. And I think going forward, you said that this is the lowest phase in Indian television, the darkest chapter, whatever you used. I think this is a churn, and it's for the better, because there will be a time when the viewer will demand value for his time and money. And it's very easy to have, I know Kishore just said that, you have to feature people want to listen. We don't want to be a chai ki dukaan, someone else wants to be a chai ki dukaan. You decide what you want to be, and you make a platform accordingly. But I think news anchors cannot be actors. I think that's a slippery slope. When we try to be very dramatic, then some of us do not know where to draw the line. And we're seeing examples of that in the industry. I don't want to name names, but it's extremely unfortunate, because that casts a shadow on everything that all of us do. And all of us have done some great work in our times. We've made mistakes, we've done good stories as well. And and I think now primetime news is also decided, the agenda is decided by what happens on social media, which is another echo chamber. So we see what's happening, and we pick up that story. And as editors, we are some of us are not applying our minds to what should be done. It's very easy to have talking heads, and I'm not casting it. I'm not sort of. This is not about anyone in particular, but I'm just saying that it's. To create content, it needs that much more effort and investment from the organization, investment in terms of time and effort, which, because the model is such, a lot of us are just not working towards that anymore. I think as editors, some of us need to focus on what really is news. And Rahul, Kamal, you have so many followers. You're all influencers in your own right. So if some of the top editors in this country decided that this is what the format should be, and we are not the Kapil Sharma show, and we are not Big Boss, and we are news channels, and you come to us only to watch news, then we set the standard. There was a time when a lot of people watched that kind of news. We've started serving them something else, and we cannot say that just because people want to watch this, we do this. That's where I stand. I don't mean to upset anyone, but I think...
Palki, I can see Rahul frowning at me, Rahul Kanwal kind of looking at me questioning.
I don't see him frowning, to be fair to him, but I think it's a churn. I think it's a churn, and we'll all figure out where we stand and what we really want to do. And we're all learning in the process.
Yeah, but we have a chance now. It's paused. There's no TRPs.
No, but Anil, I think you have to recognize that change is all. Look, first of all, I wasn't speaking about myself. Totally. I wasn't speaking about what we do in my newsroom. I worked in 3-4 different channels, actually. And I can tell you that every channel has, from the management side, an expectation of the editor. Okay, there are different expectations. And what I was trying to bring to this table, if you really want to begin the churn, is to begin to be honest. I'm not saying I'm dishonest. I'm not saying that when we covered X story, we did it because we were thinking of wagging the TRP dog. No, that is, of course, a thing that is always in the back of your mind. But what is TRP at the end of the day? Where does it come from? It comes from the viewer, as Palki said. And I think she made a good point, that the viewer also wants something. And there are, of course, expectations of television channels from the viewers, and you have to cater to a broad audience. I think Kishore made that point that, look, there are people watching. You're not a newspaper that can cut yourself up into 8 different halves. The sports page is, linearly put out at the back, and then you have this and that in the front page. It's a pastiche of 10 stories. You're a very, very unifocal single screen medium. So for one half an hour, if you're doing a particular show, that is the show that you're doing on that particular subject. Now everyone did all the stories about the economy, fragmenting, about, the COVID, and you got experts to talk about it. What I'm trying to tell you here is that if you've chosen to do a story, of course, you've got to be guided by journalistic principles. You can't make up facts. I don't know if others do it. We don't do it. If there has been investigations done, well, material comes from investigative agencies, you put it out. Now, if the court has a problem with it, they can draw a red line and they can say, look, at the FIR stage, you can't put out X things, or at the charge sheet stage, you can't do this or whatever. They can set a guideline or a red line for you. But as far as we're concerned, when we get inputs from X or Y, we report it, and everyone does that. So it's a pretty organic process, well-accepted process. The point is, and that's very important, when you start skirting the red lines and you decide that, look, you're going to be arbitrary with the facts, that's a whole separate, different conversation. And obviously, that cannot be excused at all. So let's be very, very honest here. We are dealing with a medium that has for long been guided by the TRP tail, and that's why you see the aberrations that you're seeing. Now, are we prepared to create a system which is perhaps more subscription-led, which, to bring Palki and Kishore into it, would then force people to bring out quality, invest in quality, so that you get a subscriber, a long-term viewer that is willing to invest in you. Times Now is a paid channel. A huge chunk of our revenues now comes from subscription, and we're very proud of that fact. So we're not just catering to the lowest common denominator. We're catering to people who invest as stakeholders in Times Now. It's my duty to cater to their needs and their desires for whatever they expect from us in particular genres and stories. So we're very attuned to our audience, but we don't play around with facts. In fact, we lead a campaign talking about that. Now,
you can at times, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Rahul. You can go wrong with your facts, but then you have to come up with corrigendums and apologize. Even the largest publications and the best known publications do make errors.
Which happens.
Yeah.
Which happens. So when an NBSA passes a stricture, and we're glad that we have a regulatory body like that, except that, I'm not saying that, we've got foolproof organizations that are monitoring TV either. So having said that, having put that caveat in, if you are pulled up for crossing the line, or if you realize that you've caused, egregious harm to someone's reputation, you do generally go out there and you issue an apology. And it's pretty well, even as a communicator on Twitter, sometimes I would go out and say that, look, X person said something which was not quite right, and we apologize on in behalf, or we distance ourselves from those comments. So I think those basics, I don't think anyone sort of fools around with. It's the larger problem, however, which is the model. The model needs to change, and that's why Bark has held back its ratings for 12 or whatever weeks, because there is a problem. You've got to accept it. It's the elephant in the room. There is compromise.
May I come in?
Yeah.
So yes, the model needs to change, and there are flaws in the system, but we can't just blame the system alone, is what I was saying. That you draw a line, which is the guest who's not behaving himself or using bad language. Will that guest appear on your channel again? When you set the rules for the people who appear on your screen, they will be bound to follow the rules. If they don't, they have to be told that they will not find that space or that slot again. That is one thing. And the second is, I think it's fashionable, Anil, to blame television and TV media and TV journalists these days. And most of the people doing it on social media, I'm sorry to say, are people who did not go very far in TV themselves. And it's very easy to sit and pontificate and say, oh, this should be in such and such way. But I think I think this, as I said, this is a churn, and some of us will have to draw the lines because yes, the system is flawed. That is something that everyone has agreed with. But whose responsibility is it then to fix the system? If we don't start it, who will?
Absolutely. And Palki, you made a very important point there, and I sort of referred to it. The people who sit in judgment of TV news anchors today are also motivated to doing so for a particular reason. And we have to accept those reasons. We have to understand that they say what they have to. If you're going to be led purely by the perception out there, then I think that's also...
So Rahul, so did you want to say something, or Rahul Kanwal, do you want to?
Why are people saying that we will have to draw a line, etc.? I mean, I think you have to draw a line every single day when you go out, and you should know where that line is. You should draw it. It's not something which others have to do for you, and unseen hands which pull you, and almost makes it seem as if people are puppets acting and dancing to somebody else's tune. You draw your own line every single day.
You have very little interference from management.
Yeah, we do what
Very
we want.
little interference from you don't get a call from the center that you can't carry the story.
I'm saying, okay, so there'll be pressure all the time on everyone. It depends on what you do with that pressure. If you need to go out and do the story, go out and do the story. If you're going to get really coy and act like a chicken and not do the story, I mean, that's up to you. We've done so many stories where you had phones from every single person in every single party, and it's up to you to decide what you wish to do with that pressure. If you cower and you bend and you say, okay, my morals are loose and I'm doing content which I don't fully believe in, I mean, why do it? Find something else, write a book, go to a university, teach, study, do whatever else you want. If you either you do it and you do it with conviction, or you don't do it at all. It's my view, and I believe that why are we waiting for others to come and correct? You draw your own line, and that line is not drawn in sand, it's drawn in stone, and you decide what you will do and what you won't do. And you can't be very loose about these things, that, oh, I'm having to do it, but actually I don't do anything that I don't believe in.
So far, you've been very happy with everything that you've been doing. I mean, I've been a journalist 40 years, and I have made my mistakes, and I have looked at correcting myself. But so you've been happy with almost every story that India Today has done?
Absolutely. That's the point I'm making. That if you don't believe in a story, don't do it. And if you think that you're doing a story, do it because you have the conviction to do the story. And if you have to do too many stories which you don't agree with, then don't do the job. Why? There's no compulsion. What is the compulsion? It's not as if you want to do this job that you'll die of hunger and that you'll be out on the road and the fancy house that we live in will no longer be ours. You should do. I mean, I believe very strongly that every profession should do only what he believes in. And
so, do you don't believe that the TRP pauses the time to read the way we are doing news?
Okay, so TRPs matter, but maybe if I put up Sunny Leone and she did a striptease, you'll get the highest TRPs. I mean, so
but certain channels did do that, Rahul. There was a time when certain channels did do the wrestling Mania shows at 9 o'clock. There were so many channels that did all sorts of strange Saas Bahu serials and all sorts of things. That's not journalism.
It has animated shows across, which is run.
I mean, I don't know why they were doing it. Maybe they believed in Saas Bahu regression, where you typecast women in a particular way. Maybe that's what certain editors really put their weight behind. Maybe that was good journalism and nothing to really sort of be frightfully, how should I put it, squeamish about. I think that's great. If you believe that things are right, then that's great. That's good. That's nice to know. At least there's someone amongst us who believes there's nothing wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
Next one.
Based on a lot of optimism.
Right.
Yeah. Bolo Kishore.
Yeah. I mean, what I fail to, I'm sorry, I don't agree with this thing by TV media, sare TV news media ko ek sa hona chahiye. Why should WION be like India Today? Why should Times Now be like India Today? Why should Times Now be like WION? Why should News 18 be like anybody? I mean, see, print में तो ऐसे नहीं बोलता कि पंजाब केसरी ऐसा है, तुम हिंदू जैसे क्यों नहीं हो गए? I mean, हम लोग अलग-अलग ऑडियंसेस को कैटर कर रहे हैं. मेरा ऑडियंस हिंदी स्पीकिंग मार्केट से है. So ये क्या है कि जर्नलिज्म ऐसे होता है, this is it. आप सब लोग इससे अलग हट गए हैं. Let's get back to it. लोग मिलकर काम करते हैं कि जर्नलिज्म जैसा ऐसा होना चाहिए था, ऐसे ही आ जाए.
ये हम समझ गए, लेकिन आपको नहीं लगता है कि जो टीआरपी अभी नहीं हो रही है तो हम लोग पत्रकारी कर सकते हैं, असली पत्रकारी?
नहीं, नकली नहीं कर रहे थे उससे पहले.
Okay, Ranjit,
come on. It's see, okay, you're right. You're right in one respect. There are जैसे कि एक आपका highly rated show है, तो TRP में ratings आपकी अच्छी आती हैं, you get good ratings there, and at that time a news comes in which you feel कि we should stop this show today and do this, but then उस time producer का pressure आता है, सर मेरा highly rated है, आप क्यों गिरा रहे हो, आप इससे बात कर लेना, maybe आज TRP नहीं है तो हम लोग ठीक है यार इस हफ्ते तो TRP नहीं आ रही ना, hold on, मैं ये कर दूंगा, ये छोटे डिसीजंस हो सकते हैं, बट ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि पहले बिल्कुल हम कुछ और कर रहे थे, अब कुछ और करने बैठ जाएंगे.
एक्सपेरिमेंट नहीं करोगी? Will you experiment further? I'm saying during this period. क्या हम कर सकते हैं?
I think people are experimenting. I think people are experiment का जजमेंट पैरामीटर क्या होगा? आप कह रहे हैं ना रेटिंग्स नहीं है, नहीं कुछ किसी चीज से तो जज कर रहे हैं ना.
हाँ जी.
इवेंचुअली उसके बाद आपको जजमेंट का पैरामीटर ये कि प्रिंट मीडियम कैसा होता है वैसा पैरामीटर होना चाहिए क्या? I also feel कि television, all television channels come bundled into our homes, into the screen. तो सबके पास अपने views होते हैं, because 25 चैनल आ रहे हैं तो सब पे व्यू देख रहे हैं. ये कैसा है, ये ऐसा है, वैसा. Papers and magazines आप इतनी सारी तो मंगाते नहीं हैं. You choose what you want to read. तो उसमें आपको लगता है कि no, I am Times of India reader or Hindustan Times reader or Hindu reader or Navbharat Times reader or Bhaskar reader. उनको नहीं बोलते यार भास्कर ने इतना खराब लिखा, पंजाब केसरी ने ऐसा लिखा. हमको बोलते हैं कि ये देखो वो चैनल कैसा कर रहा है, वो कैसा कर, because you get all of them. जजमेंट अगर हमारी किस पैरामीटर पे हमको जज किया जाएगा? ऐसे कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में जर्नलिस्ट बैठकर हम इलेक्टेड तरीके से जज करेंगे या अपने टीआरपी रेटिंग से जज करेंगे? I agree with Rahul. What Rahul Kamal is saying here. Let's हम वो करेंगे which we are convinced about, we are happy about.
So currently
and we make mistakes. All of us do.
Yeah. So currently we are kind of we have two differing points of view, and I'm running out of time. I wish I had another hour. We could go on. I could go deeper into this, but I have my next session to get on to. So we have 2 points of view. One point of view saying industry needs to re-examine itself. The other point of saying we're already re-examining ourselves. So whichever one does it better going forward will be the true winner. Thank you very much, all of you, for being a part of this. And thank you for your time. Appreciate your honest frankness of your opinions over here. Thank you very much. And have a good day and all the best to us as journalists. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.